All right, now we're recording. I can catch you up on anything that wasn't. Is that okay? I don't get like
That'll be
demerit.
fine. I just wanted to make sure that I
Okay.
was gonna, if I look back at the video, just to capture any details.
Yes. Thank you for reminding me.
Uh-huh.
So they would like to, FERCog, meaning Tamsin and Kimberly, who we met with, would like to know from us if we have specific things that we think we would like them to be assisting us with, because what they're going to do is prepare a more detailed scope of work. And then that will basically be a kind of a contract between them and the town. They've asked me for an update of what we've been doing, a timeline for when our report is due to the select board. That's easy. And I have a couple of questions that I think I might be asking whether they can help with, but they specifically said, survey your group and see if anyone has ideas of things that you think they could help us with to advance the work of implementing their recommendations. So we could do this in a number of ways. We can spend a little bit of time brainstorming about that now, or you could send me some ideas that you have, and I'll assemble them all into a list. I'm going to be meeting with them next. It's looking like it'll be next Friday to go over these things with them. So we have some time if you'd like to spend 10 minutes or so just throwing some ideas out. We don't have to discuss them necessarily. It'll be like a shopping list for them, but or sleep on it and send me something, fairly soon, like Monday, maybe. It's possible.
How would what they do differ from what the grant people will do if we get the grant?
Well, if you go back to I have to inform our whole group a little bit more about the grant thing, because that's good news too, or semi-good. I'll put that off to the side. It's not semi-bad either, but anyway, I'm getting myself all bollocksed up.
Right.
What they would be doing different, Eric, is I think that particular rural development fund is a particular grant, right? So that's going to fund whatever project is proposed to them, and that they've given us the heads up, yeah, this is an eligible project. I think what FERCog could do is help us locate other funding sources, especially funding sources that might be available to us for nonprofit use. I think they could help us in zeroing in on some of the maintenance things and what they already know about culvert sizing and culvert assessment and things like that. Their public education section was pretty slim, and ours is too. When we review it later, you'll see, and maybe it's just a start with that, but I believe that that is a key element, and it could really use some fleshing out, and I'm not really sure what they've done with other towns. Also, we have our H&H study, and they have been pretty involved in other towns that have conducted H&H studies. And finally, hanging out there in the distance is the geomorphic work with Fisk Brook, including trying to get on board some of the other stakeholders in what goes on, and what would be involved in that. So I also need more details on what they could help us out with, but the general gist was, the purpose of this is to help us advance and get closer to implementation on the recommendations they made in their plan.
Sounds like you've got a pretty good list already.
Yeah.
I would, in their report that we read, that they mentioned at several locations for interventions, the best practices sites, and could we get them to identify what the best practice at the specific locations might
Yeah,
be.
that's good.
But,
So they've identified sites and we're wondering what the best BMPs for that particular site would
Right.
be.
So that, and they had that, I forget where this is, but there's a section somewhere that identifies different sorts of interventions. I'm thinking what comes to mind is one kind of device, retention device with, sediment settling and then a runoff pipe, which I remember looking at and go, wow, that would help us a lot in a few places. But yes, if they could say, oh, this is be a good place for, for terracing, good place for just use their expertise to, and then that can, I think, probably go to the hydrology report to help them know what sites and what type of interventions we've been thinking about.
Good ideas. I was also thinking that they, wait.
If
It
I
will
could
come back
interrupt.
to me. It will come back. Yeah.
That the other thing that I don't remember in their report, but probably is in it, is several. Well, you went around the lake and saw the outfall of their suggestion. I don't know if they then mentioned those locations and what could be done there. I think of putting large gravel riprap down to kind of slow the water flow from the pipes so that sand doesn't get carried into the lake or erosion doesn't take place because of the velocity of the water. That's the sort of, I there spelled it out, of if they could look at the places where we have the outflows and make some suggestions as what can be done in those locales.
Okay, that sounds good. And Eric, do you know, has the town of Shutesbury had this kind of, direct technical assistance from FERCog on other kinds of projects?
They have, I don't know about it, but I mean, not currently, I don't believe. So I don't know. I should know, I guess, but I don't.
That's okay. I'm going to learn more about, what they think they can do too, because they know what their own limitations are. Tom, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I don't know if this would be part of what Tamsin and Kim might be able to do, but there was a question. I don't know if it's come up too much since it was first raised by the highway department of paving roads or roads that would be able to be paved if they could. Looking into that. I don't remember that in the maintenance and management recommendations that we were looking at as much
It
as
wasn't,
how
yeah.
to continue maintenance and management of a dirt road. And I know that might be a too expensive or too far out idea, but just wanted to see if there was any approach they could offer on that. And also, we keep bringing up the public-private issue, and sometimes we've mentioned finding some sort of agreement from I don't know how it would be from whom to whom, but such that the public entity could have use of right of way, ownership outright or something with the private roads now, and whether Tamsin and Kim, I don't know if I think they actually said they haven't had much experience with that sort of specific issue, but if they can find any like way that would be like mutually satisfying for everyone involved that they know of where this has come up before. But I'm afraid that I'm saying it now and remembering that was one of the areas where they hadn't had much firsthand experience. But
Right, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't,
right, or help us
be,
even research how to deal with that better and maybe finding some sort of plan that works for everyone. But
yeah, that's good. Did you have another point, Tom?
no, thanks. So those are the two things. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, so
All right, so stay
Right.
tuned on that. Let me just double check this list here. Since we're on the topic of FERCog, I mean, we also have the 319 and the 604, or the whatever those numbers are, and they might be able to help us key in on whether those are possible sources for us. But we have a long way to go. I mean, we'll get to the H&H study in a minute, but that is going to be the first thing.
Jim had a question there.
Yes, Jim.
With regard to what was, the issue of working with private entities, that if, and I'm sorry to fall out of the conversation on this, but meeting with the Lake Wyola Association and the other groups, I think if it could be developed with one of the other groups, some of these issues, rather than kind of going into them with some request that things be turned over or whatever, just see what Lake Wyola Association be willing to suggest and work with without kind of being so formal in the first few steps.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we'll see if FERCog, what their
take.
We'll see what, I mean, they're there to help us. And if I will share these ideas of specific help that we think they can give us, and it may even prompt a dialogue about, oh, well, we could help with that, or we'll see what it looks like. It's all new to me.
How much money are they willing to throw at this project? Do we know that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know that FERCog throws money around, do
Well,
they?
you know what I mean?
I think it's money.
They must have a budget.
Yeah, I don't know what their budget is, but I know originally they said if they got the secondary funding, they would be able to help with applying for grants. So they must have gotten that. They can help with applications. I'm glad, because funding is drying up all over the place.
Oh, yeah, really?
Yeah. But is that amount important? Should I try to obtain that from them?
No, I was just curious as much as anything, but
Yeah.
No.
Okay, and apparently there's a letter that's been sent to the town. They sent it on Monday. I think it probably just is too soon for it to have gotten through Gabe's system. But,
Right, I haven't seen it. I know I
yeah.
haven't seen it yet.
Okay, so also on my list of updates is no news on hybrid meetings. I've missed Melissa twice, phone calls we were supposed to have. She got tied up. So she is the guru on setting up hybrid meetings at town hall. So I am pursuing that still. Bob, I know you brought that up, someone who you knew, and there might be others. Maybe we'll have a hybrid meeting possibility in April and maybe in May, but I'm on it and it just hasn't become clear yet.
Very good. Just to give you an update, I did make copies of Tom's very fine minutes that were available online and gave those to that person. So
Oh, good. Okay,
keep you appraised.
great. I also spoke with FERCog. This was a question that came up in our discussions last month about splitting off the H&H study from the geomorphic study. And I think the consensus among our group was, can we find out whether there's any reason scientifically why those shouldn't be done separately or concurrently? Did that matter? What was, I think the way it was phrased is, what's the science behind that? And Tamsin and Kimberly said no difference scientifically, and that it takes, they agreed that the complexity of various getting other municipalities and private owners on board is something that would give them pause in terms of delaying the H&H study to get the geomorphic thing off the ground. But on that note, I went to the LWAC meeting on Saturday and the question came up, well, how much would this geomorphic study cost? And I still think that she must have missed a zero because I asked GZA because I felt that their proposal was the most fleshed out. And they subcontracted their geomorphic study out to another firm when they worked with, I guess, in Buckland. And she said she reached out to them and asked them, and they said it would be $3,500. And I have a feeling she must have missed a zero there, but I haven't had a chance to ask her. So don't
yeah.
quote numbers in the minutes or anything, Tom.
Okay.
So Charlene has her hand up, and I think Eric also wanted to say something.
No, I'm okay.
Okay.
Mine was just the financial question. I know that we heard, what was it, a figure around 45 to 50,000 for the H&H study. So that geomorphic study is another expense beyond that, correct?
Correct. And we're going to get into the actual specifics of what the engineering firms have given us in just a minute. But yes, it would be beyond that.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah. Okay, also in the good news department, or this is what I called semi-good news, but hopeful news, is that Senator Comerford's office got in touch with the town about a grant that's called the Rural Development Grant. And it's available to small towns less than 7,000 people. Now, most of the criteria for projects eligible for that grant are more like site preparation and development for more housing or, you know, other items like that. But roads and infrastructure related to safe roads is also a category. And buried within the details of that eligible project are things about climate resiliency and safe roads that could be impacted by bad storm events, and a number of things that when I read the guidelines, I thought that our and they fund engineering studies. So I thought that our engineering study, we could make a good case, I think, for our engineering study being a good candidate for this, and especially since it is an extension of an already completed watershed-based plan. You know, I mean, we have a lot of momentum already going into things. So I think the select board is meeting next week on Tuesday to vote on whether they would include funding our H&H study in its, first they would submit to the Rural Development Fund an expression of interest. And then that expression of interest is evaluated to see whether the project seems like it would fit with their guidelines. And if they say yes, then a full application is due sometime in June. So this is something that the FERCog could help us with if we do get positive feedback from the expression of interest. Now, I understand that there's some other culvert projects in town not related to our watershed that are also under consideration.
I think we can I can update on that and say
Oh,
that's
good.
they're not ready yet. That's not
Okay.
so I think we can forget that, which
Oh,
is
good.
good for us.
It is good, yeah. So so because we have, and we'll get to the engineering firm estimates in a minute, but the one firm, GZA, was so specific. You know, they had a timetable in there. Their cost was staged, different stages of costs. This is exactly what the Rural Development Fund is looking for. You know, they want project-ready projects. And so the select board is going to vote on it on Tuesday to see whether they want our H&H study to be, if they want to submit this letter of interest. And then I also heard from our town administrator that Senator Comerford's office has already said that they're going to send a letter of support for this project. So, you know, and I mean, just wouldn't it be great if our H&H study could be funded by the Rural Development Fund? It is important to add, and I think this is such a huge opportunity for us, is that they say that they give priority to projects where there's a 10% match. So if we take the high end of our estimates, which was GZA, that was 74,000. And if we were able to say that we could give that 10% match, and if that 10% match could be shared with the Lake Wyola Association, so the town puts in half of 74, 7,400 and the Lake Wyola Association puts in the other half, then it's the first chance that we have for sharing what I hope will become mutually desirable, a single goal that everybody is on board with. And I think it strengthens our proposal tremendously. Not only are we ready to go, there's a timetable, GZA, the select board's got to decide on GZA, and there's the other firm. But so the firm aside, if we can create a 10% match that involves both teams, so to speak, I think that we would have a super strong proposal.
How does this relate to the public-private situation,
Right. Well, FERCog had said originally, and we will verify this with them. Let's hope that the Rural Development Fund says, yes, this is an eligible project. If they don't, then, we start over again.
right?
But if they say yes, FERCog had said that in their view, the ownership of the property wouldn't be so germane to the H&H study. Because we might need permissions for people to walk on properties that they don't own, or, all the different things that any firm would do would require access to private property, but no work is being done. So the H&H study is, I think, blind to ownership.
Mm-hmm.
But that is something that I would verify. I could verify that with GZA and with FERCog.
The other thing I would say is your what I did read your letter of interest, whatever they call it, and it was very well done. I think that's great. Thanks for doing that. That's
Thank
really
you.
good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so let's keep our fingers crossed, because that would be
Yeah,
just
that'd be great.
awesome right off the bat to have that, to get us started. And I don't know what I think they say that the applications due in June and the projects have to be ready to begin in 2026. But we could be ready sooner than that for sure. I don't know when they give you that feedback. So it brings up the next point is a possible meeting with Lake Wyola Association to update them on what we're doing, to see to offer some background of how this is a unique kind of situation where it's not just Lake Wyola stuff, town stuff, but we're trying to, to see what we can do to bring these two together in some way where it's relevant. And to that end, Charlene has said that the association has set aside an hour on April 1st for a contingent from our group to meet via Zoom with them and toss around some of our ideas, these funding opportunities. I think our document on maintenance and management would be something that after today's meeting, Charlene, I think I would feel comfortable if everyone else did of giving you that document so that they could take a look at what the maintenance and management recommendations are.
Okay.
We'll see what everybody votes on, but yeah, so April 1st, 7 p.m. And I think that our group could attend, right? It's not just me.
No, it's the whole group is invited to that.
Okay.
And I did mention that if possible, even the highway superintendent would be great to have, but it's outside his work hours, so I'm not sure how that would work. But the document that you were just talking about, Jen, is that the one that you created a while ago that you wanted to just have a discussion within our group about the Lake Wyola roads?
Yeah, and town roads. It's about maintenance and management all the way around. So we're going to look at that today. I've fiddled with that. And Dave has answered a bunch of questions that are helpful as it relates to town roads, and I imported them into the document. So we're going to look at that in detail in a minute.
Yeah.
So anyway, great news, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Very good.
Hopeful news. Any questions about that?
Yeah,
Tom?
you already crafted an expression of interest, is that what it's called? Is that what
Oh, well, I gave, it has to be submitted by the town. It's a form. So
Uh-huh.
it's basically like a 500-word abstract. And that went to Gabe. And I think the select board's going to vote on it on Tuesday. It has to be in to them the following day on the 26th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Um,
So it was a very tight, I mean, I just learned about this last week at the select board meeting. So it
Yeah,
was-
yeah, I caught wind of it. I wasn't quite sure the logistics, who prepared what and
Mhm.
everything. Okay, well,
I
thanks.
gave
You did so.
Gabe some, what the H&H study would be for, what the tasks of an H&H study were, and what the potential timetable was and things like that. The expression of interest form was very, it was bare bones for sure.
Yeah, it's very, pretty simple.
Yeah, very.
But
very
you really
simple.
did a good job. That's great what you did. I can't believe that's going to be helpful, I would think, in terms of getting the grant.
I hope so. And and I have to say, it was, I have to thank GZA, even though no one has chosen them as an engineering firm yet, the work that they did and the thoroughness of their proposal was super helpful for itemizing what that expression of interest really wanted.
Well, they're doing work on the dam for the town, so they're sort of, they probably like us, right?
They must, I
We've
mean,
given them work already.
yeah, and and I think, I mean, let me just hold off my comments about them until we get to the reviewing the engineering estimates. Okay, so let me also ask Bob, we were wondering if you ever heard back from your friend in Chester.
Yeah, I have not, unfortunately. I left
Okay,
a few messages and it's kind of unclear if I'm getting to the right person or not. So I apologize.
that's
I
okay.
will keep on it though.
Okay. So on these engineering estimates, we haven't heard back from Fuss and O'Neill. We did hear back from Comprehensive Environmental, CEI, twice. I think I sent those to you. One came in the 50s somewhere, and it seemed that included Fisk. So I wondered what would happen if we scaled that back, and they scaled it back to 34. It wasn't nearly, I don't know what you guys, I should hold off on I have very strong feelings about these engineering estimates, but I'll hold off and I'll hear. I sent you the one from CEI too, right?
I think so, yeah.
It was an email chain, basically. It was an email thread. And then you have GZA's proposal. I could start out by saying, I'm not sure our role is to weigh in on either of these. I think our role is to, send them to the select board and say, we've endorsed an H&H study. We've solicited estimates from these, well, 3 firms, but Fuss and O'Neill seems to have dropped off. I don't see that they're being very responsive. So no fault on
Yeah, I
them.
mean,
They
if
must
you've
be
had
very
time to
busy.
sort of form an opinion, I don't think the select board would think that was a bad thing.
Mhm.
That would be my guess. That you're deeper in the weeds on it than they are, or we are, whatever to say it.
Well, but how about the rest of you? Do you have you had a chance to look at either of these? Do you have a feeling one way or the other? Charlene's hand is up.
Well, only because I've seen GZA, the results of an engineering study, and it was what I liked about it, it was clear and understandable because it wasn't a lot of scientific jargon, and it, for people like me and other people that sit in an audience and listen, you could follow what they were saying. And I for one, appreciate that. I just do have one question, unless I heard it wrong or I read wrong. you had mentioned their amount was something like 74,000, and that was just the H&H, correct? But then you said this other firm was like 34. That's a significant, if you take out Fisk, correct? So,
That's right. And it was more limited to Locks Pond and culverts on Locks Pond. It wasn't nearly as comprehensive as what GZ is offering for 74, in my view.
well,
Not
that was
only that,
that was my question. What is the $40,000 difference between? So you just
Right.
answered it.
and that also GZA's commitment to the project includes lots of post-study work, right? Looking for avenues for implementing things and things like that. You know, they would kind of serve as a consultant to us, not just a firm doing the study. CEI seems to be more focused on modeling and looking at, you know, weather patterns and stream patterns over time and running a lot of models. Whereas GZA in their proposal, they were going to be out here, you know, walking and meeting with us and doing things that made it seem more tailor-made, more custom-made to what we were about. They seemed more interested in that too. So maybe their fee includes this more hands-on kind of
Okay, that was my
involvement.
question.
It's a good question. I mean, I go with, well, I'm not going to say I always just go with my gut, but my gut is that they wanted to meet with us. They spent a good long time meeting with us. They prepared a proposal that I thought was very thorough. They have worked with our town before, and they've done a project similar to ours in Buckland. They've worked with FERCog. They seem to understand some of what we're aiming for, right? What some of our issues here are. They were very familiar with the FERCog watershed-based plan. They had read it. And I have a feeling like they might, you know, I don't know, this might be presumptuous, but I think they want this project. I don't think they would have gone through all of that specific detail in their proposal if they weren't serious about. And they didn't even have to, because I had asked them for a ballpark estimate, right? That's what we got from CEI. So that's just my gut feeling, but
That's good evidence.
I will say that CEI did have caveats about certain customizations could make the prices go up. So besides the less comprehensive part, that also means it could end up much more than the 34.
that's right.
Whereas GZA seems to have kind of anticipated those sorts of scenarios and included them in it.
I think so, yeah. And you know, I mean, the fact that they're already working with the town, and I don't know, Eric, I mean, has the experience, no red flags there that you know of?
There are no red flags that I know of. I know, yeah, I don't know of them. I've never
That's
heard any
right.
problems.
And Mark is very, Mark at LWAC is very happy with GZA too. So this gets to a related question, which is, okay, now you'll be happy to hear that we only have 3 meetings left, our task force. That if we wind down on June 18th, when supposedly we are to wind down, and I think we are totally in the ballpark of being able to provide a report to the select board by mid-June. I'm wondering if we should forward these estimates and the proposals to the select board prior to that. Because if it's going to be funded, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, but if the town wants to fund the H&H study, it has to go on the warrant for the town meeting in June, right?
It's going to happen sometime this next year, in the next fiscal year, right? So yeah, yes.
Okay, so and any expenditure on an engineering study would have to go to town meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay. Therefore, I don't know whether we can wait till, we can't wait till June 18th to submit anything about the H&H study. There'd have to be some kind of an interim report.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this, that there's almost always a special town meeting in the fall. I mean, there there certainly could be. So it's, I mean, I don't know how fast they're gonna get going on this or would like to get going on this, but
That's another thing that pleased me about working with them. When I got the proposal initially, it said that they wanted a commitment from the town within a month. And I said, we're not even going to be sending our report to the select board until mid-June. And she said, oh, okay, well, we'll change it to 6 months.
Right.
And if
There
they
you go.
can do that, and then also the time frame extending that out and not say that would affect the cost. I don't know. We don't have a contract yet. Maybe there'll be specifics about that, but so again, you know, it's 74,000. If we got the rural development grant, that would be a different amount that we would be asking for at town meeting. But I don't know how to handle that logistically, Eric. I was hoping that you could give some insight to that.
well, I know that, I believe that, so the town meeting's May 31st is the, I think that's where, technically, we settle that this week at the next select board meeting, next week at next. But that, I think that's gonna happen. So let's assume it does. I believe we have to know that the warrants has to be written, I believe it's 2 weeks before the town meeting. I'm not 100% sure about that. I'm pretty sure that's correct. So that means we'd have to have all our ducks in order by, you know, mid-April at the very latest. I'm sorry, mid-May at the very latest.
Yeah. And then I don't know, it sounds to me like we're heading toward, if we don't have to, I prefer not to rush things just because rushing usually means mistakes.
Right.
And because we don't know about this rural development fund, I don't know how soon they give us feedback on our expression of interest.
We don't know when they actually, yeah, when that fund actually, it releases the money, do we? I don't think we know that. I don't know that anyway. Do you recall if that was told us?
No, and I don't even know whether that was specified, but you can bet that if the applications aren't due until June sometime, that the money is not coming in till after that. Way after that, because they have to review all the applications, but Charlene.
Well, Eric, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't the town have to have a public forum on the articles for the warrant so the public can see it before with some explanation? Or is that just a courtesy that some towns do?
That's just a courtesy. I don't think there's any law that says we have to do that. I don't think there is, but we pretty much have always done it. But
well, I think what I'm hearing,
Okay.
I think what I'm hearing is that it just becomes part of our report, you know, that the FERCog plan recommended a whole series of things on structural interventions or best management practices, and H&H study was part of that, and we're endorsing that, and we have received these estimates, and we are very impressed with GZA, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, if you know, that gets accepted by the select board and we have a special town meeting sometime, then I think that's the way it'll probably go, don't you?
yeah, that sounds like that. Without rushing things, that sounds like the way to do it.
Right.
I mean, the special town meeting's usually in October or like that. It could be earlier. If there was a reason to have it earlier, it could be earlier probably, but it's usually October-ish, something, and somewhere in there, there's a special town meeting.
Right. And I think, you know, there's a slew of other little sort of strategies about the approval of the H&H study might not necessitate much funding if we get grants. So, all right, let's hold off on that then. I know I have some clarity on, we'll just hang on to those proposals, but we'll endorse one and make a recommendation in our report. Does that sound good?
That's the way that sounds perfect.
I'm good. Okay. All right. So now I wasn't gonna really, I don't know how much time we're gonna be able to spend on this, but because we have now this unexpected April 1st meeting with the select board, if you don't mind, let's just look quickly at the maintenance and management policies document. And if you all are happy with it, then we can give that to Charlene to take to the Lake Wyola Association, and that will be one of the big things on our agenda when we meet with them on the 1st. Does that sound okay?
Mhm.
All right. You've all seen it before, so it shouldn't be too much to look at again. Charlene.
Just a matter of, we had our meeting already this week and determined that April 1st would be our meeting. Our out of the box, out of our monthly meeting place. So we do not have another official meeting until after April 1st. I think it's, I don't know. I have so many meetings. It's later in April. So if you don't mind, I could send out the document to everybody just to have been read before the April 1st meeting, because that's the only other way without having another meeting prior to April 1st, which isn't even going to be possible. So maybe I'm wrong. No, I know I'm not wrong on that, because April 1st is next week, correct? Are we close?
It is. It is
Yeah,
next
so
week.
I know what our next meeting is after the April 1st one. And I just had one more technical question. Since it's a joint meeting, we always have one of our members sets up the Zoom. And then I know I always go to the website to get onto the erosion Zoom. When you have two entities doing it, is it just one that does it and everybody joins them, or can they keep their separate ones and somehow get together? How does that work?
I think the way you did it before, when I gave the update to Lake
Yeah.
Wyola, so you guys make the Zoom meeting, and when you have the link, then you send it to us. And
Right.
it's not an official town meeting. We're coming as visitors to your meeting.
Okay, because it was just you that had come to that.
That's right. Yeah, I
that
think
meeting.
Tom
But
came too.
even if it's everybody, you still do it the way you're suggesting. It's like, everybody would get the link that wanted to
Yeah.
go.
All right, so we set up the link and then invite. Well,
You're gonna send it, what you did last time is you sent it in an email
to you.
to, well, it could be to me, or you have the email addresses of all of us. You could just
Okay,
send it
all
to
right.
all of us. Yeah.
Okay, all right, I've got it. I just
Okay. All right, let me see if I can share this now, desktop. Last time I tried to share it, oh, it is
Gonna
gonna
work.
let me. Okay. Allow. Okay, everybody see this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So what I tried to do is color code things. General recommendations that involve both the town and Lake Wyola Association are in red. This yellow are answers that we got from the highway department to some of these recommendations. So that was pretty helpful. Dave sent an email because it just was impossible to get a meeting to happen. So I guess it will be a lot to go through this, but before April 1st, but it's no different than what we've already seen other than Dave's input. So for example, where we said evaluate road management BMPs to see if improvements can be made or implemented to achieve higher load. He says, as to implementation, that changes every year, but the budget doesn't change. To increase frequency or require more than once a year basin cleaning would cost the town more of a burden due to the fact that we hire out to accomplish that cleaning. Because of weather change, sand and silt application has to be adjusted. So I just put that in there. We don't debate things about the highway department's expertise, but that the select board would be getting this as part of our report. It's been recommended, we support it, and this is the feedback from the highway department. That's the way I feel like we would go about it. This is one that both the town and Lake Wyola would have. It's recommended that both stakeholders continue to recrown roads. Recrowning our Lake Wyola roads is a big deal, and I think I'm hoping that FERCog can help in locating some grant funding that can help not help, but cover that. This is Dave's response. It's a good question. Right now they have a grader that's 40 years old. So you get a consistent crown, but it's challenging due to the fact that it's manually operated. Eric, this is for you. Timing is good to ask this question
Yeah.
because we're at the point of replacing the grader.
Yeah, all right, well, yeah.
And I said, I thanked him and I said that we would definitely, be passing this on to the select board. I don't know what he means by all of the town residents can help with this perch at the annual meeting.
I think he means purchase.
Oh,
That's
purchase, okay, we'll put purchase. Okay, that's good. Okay. Develop an operation and maintenance plan. He's fine with that. He already has a close relationship with FERCog. The town already does annual spring assessments. We had this is all town related stuff. We had this question about disconnected turnouts and what that was. And he is talking about those as catch ponds. We have catch ponds, many catch ponds now, and would like to install more of them if allowed by the Conservation Commission. So here's another, advocacy that our task force can do with other committees in town on behalf of the Highway Department, among others too. Charlene.
Is a catch pond a retention pond? Are they one and the same?
I think it would be close. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Continue municipal street sweeping. This is a general recommendation for the town. He said that's an ongoing adjustment due to weather. If this is they're recommending other materials for rather than salt, reducing salt and sand, but he said that if different materials are added to the ones they currently use, you need much more storage, and that's a challenge because the space that they have is already limited. And this might be something that FERCog could help unpack too. Do you need something in addition to what is already used or something to replace what's already used? Okay, then there are some general recommendations for the Lake Wyola Association. And Jim, I was hoping you would be able to help here, and maybe this is something we'll do at the meeting on April 1st, but it was discussed last time that we would split this up to say things that are currently being done by Lake Wyola and recommendations for future things that they might do. But I have no idea what's currently being done. So I just put question marks there. And
I can try and prep a paragraph for that.
Okay, that's good. Recommendations for future policies involve the FERCog dirt roads toolkit, encourage a drainage and erosion subgroup to the roads committee. I think the association has already said they didn't want to do that, but it's still in there. Lake Wyola should discontinue the use of loose gravel. These are all things that we'll hope to discuss with the association people when we meet with them on the 1st, Charlene. So all of these things that are indicated as Lake Wyola are things that we would hope to discuss with you all on the 1st. Is that clear?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just the subgroup statement. The group as a whole felt rather than having a new committee or group formed, it would be best to use the current roads committee to be that subgroup. So that was recommended by George actually as a better way to go about this, because they're already very well aware of all the roads and the situation, but they would be the go-to group as opposed to a new group of people who may not have the understanding that the roads committee has.
Right. And Jim, you could weigh in on this too. This kind of work here of evaluating the drainage ditches, culverts, things like that. and also evaluating water bars and turnouts. I don't know that the roads committee is doing that now. I know Dave Boron drives around.
And he does that. He drives around because he's brought in by the
Right.
Lake Association, so that
Is he evaluating the condition of culverts and water bars?
Presently it's pretty much the roads committee that does that, and then
Right.
we ask him in to take care of problem areas.
Okay, well, we'll talk with everybody about that. I understand the feelings about no extra groups or anything. I think that what's being recommended here, unless I'm wrong, is something much more granular, much more detailed than a run through on the condition of the roads, because what we're trying to do is isolate entire drainage systems, not road surfaces. So if the roads committee has the people power to do that kind of deeper investigation, then great. Maybe it's a working group or something. I can't and won't tell the Lake Wyola Association how to organize itself, but the kind of work here is different than just road evaluation. And I think that's one thing I would like to try to make clear to the association when we meet with them.
And
I think that a lot of the people, excuse me, go ahead.
no, go ahead, Jim.
I would just think, I think a good number of the people on the roads committee are aware of these issues and try and act on them, so that
Great.
I think it'd just be like a formal, I don't know if the articles for the association have charges or missions for all the committees, but I think it'd just be adding a bit to the roads committee, because I think it's kind of something that many of the members of the roads committee do. So
Great. Yeah, that's great.
And at our last meeting, George said he would be meeting with Dave Boron to go all around the lake to sort of look at spots that need attention. And then what David does is create a punch list for us to look at a meeting, and he actually give us prices sometimes, and then vote as a committee as to what we can financially afford. As far as the culverts go, I don't remember hearing much about culverts in some of those previous reports, but I do know he makes recommendation about those water bars, and I know cleaning out retention ponds. We've had things like that in his report, but he will give a nice punch list, which will be shared, I assume, at our next meetings after April 1st. But and we review it as a group, and try to weigh the finances that we're able to do, and the things that are, which really try to prioritize. And most of the time we can get all of it done, or close to all of it done. So that's the good news.
That is good news. Okay, on the west side, this is, FERCog mentioned drainage ditches from Great Pines are getting shallow. This is the town's. He's going to check those ditches and see if they can improve the condition. He also said on Locks Pond Road, the opposite side of the road from the lake, they want to control water so there's less water dumps into the culvert. And that leads to the lakeside by sumping at the inlet and improving water flow. That is a best management practice, right? And if I think that the H&H study is going to weigh in on all of these items, both on the Lake Wyola properties and the town properties, and make recommendations of how best to reduce that sediment flow into the lake.
Yeah.
Then we got to try to find the money, right?
If we could just raise one issue there, that specifically there, the culverts, that the culvert that by Sue's house, Sue
Hoyle.
Hill, really does create a problem for her, because the water comes across the road or in the culvert and right into her house. And so one of the questions I would have is it possible to reduce the flow in that to close down that culvert at the most extreme, or at least reduce the flow, because that then feeds into the bit of King Road that is closed, and the drainage that goes down through there. So
Wish I knew the address of Sue Hoyle's house.
The second house after Great Pines. I don't know the number, I'm sorry.
I'll figure it out. I'll drive by there. Okay. I don't have to say, is it possible? Okay, reduce the
Yeah.
flow. Alrighty. So
I'll try
then-
and send you the address. I can walk up
Great.
there and get it myself.
So this is the west side, things currently being done by Lake Wyola, recommendations for the future. You guys will look at that. We'll talk about it on the 1st. Dave's going to check the ditches to see if they can improve condition and design on Wendell Road. And we have the east side of Lake Wyola. Provide annual maintenance schedule to clean culverts and drainage ditches on Shore and Pine. See, part of these, I think I'm getting clear here that there is a whole drainage system problem, on the west side. I'm on the east side, but I think that's going to be dealt with these best management practices, with the BMPs. And what we're dealing with here are things that the Lake Wyola Association is being recommended in the town to deal with existing conditions.
Well, if we haven't talked about it for a while, but the what's it called? The strait,
Watson Straits.
Watson Strait there. If there's anything that can be done with the culverts and the edge of the road by Watson Straits that would reduce the water coming down onto that road, that would be a first step. It wouldn't solve everything, but it would make it easier to address the problem.
Right, and that's a best management practice question.
Well, there's the culverts there. That's the.
Oh, okay, culverts on Watson. Okay, inspect. And what do we do besides inspect those culverts?
Well, yeah.
In other words, besides, they're gonna do, the H&H study is gonna look at water flow patterns and make proposals for properly sized culverts. So there's nothing we would be asking the Lake Wyola Association to do for management or maintenance on
No,
something
this
that
is one of
doesn't
the town
exist.
culverts.
Okay, well, even the town,
Yeah.
in other words, if it's not properly sized now and needs replacement or redesign, that's going to be part of best management practices.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. All right, so we went through that pretty quickly, but I'm hoping that you guys can sign off on the idea that Charlene can share this with the Lake Wyola Association, and that we can have a conversation with them on basically on whether they want to, if they can be on board for making this part of their regular maintenance and management routine. And if necessary, if augmenting funding is needed for that, then we would need to get some kind of idea of what that would be so that we can start to propose some fundraising. But the main thing is, do you feel like this document can be shared with Lake Wyola Association? And Charlene and Jim, does this provide enough of a working base to have a discussion?
I personally think it'll be great because, and again, if you look at it ahead of time, I always find things helpful when it comes to an actual discussion. You're not trying to read and process and come up with your questions. So I like the fact that it can be shared early, to be honest with you, but that's up to everybody.
No, I agree with Charlene. I think it gives people a chance to read it and think about it a bit and not just knee jerk to it.
Any objections?
No, I think it's mostly important that
I would just ask that it be marked as a draft.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, that's marked for
Well,
draft.
it has it, yeah, but
Now it's bolded and
And can I
underlined.
please see what Dave wrote on page 3 for the west side? I just couldn't read it before you scrolled.
Okay, sorry.
A little more, scroll a little more.
Oh,
That's the one I think I
east
didn't.
side.
Maybe it's east side. Okay, I didn't know if it was anything significant, but do you mind just checking down more if there was, I think that was his last comment.
I think that was, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I just didn't, thank you so much.
Okay. All right, so we always don't quite get to everything that I'm hoping we'll get to. We did pretty good. We didn't get to look at the public education recommendations. I have sent those to you. I'm okay to put that off until our next meeting since it is, I'm not sure there's going to be a lot of additions to that, although there might be, but I wouldn't think that that would be significant enough that we would have trouble doing that in next month's meeting and have that ready for the writing of the report in June. But I'll let you all weigh in on that. If you want to take some extra time to look at it now, it's not long, or we can put it off till next month.
Either way is okay with me. That's not helpful, probably.
So agreeable, Eric.
I know. It's been a long day of meetings, believe me. It can go on for all night or it could stop right now. So it's fine with me.
Well, let's let this be, we had so many updates that took more time than I thought, but I thought, let's put it off till next time. I don't see any reason to race through that just yet. We can do it next time. It's not going to be long.
Can I just ask a question about the education bit?
Yeah.
Because it's out of my head. I can't remember. Was there any bit about contacting the town library for holding educational meetings that
No, but we should add that.
the librarian is a gem and
Yeah,
we
it's
can
true.
hold on to
Here.
her.
I won't type it in just yet, but I'll put it on my notes to add that in there.
Thank you.
And what
Yeah, wait
would
till the
be
new library opens. There'll be plenty of room theoretically.
Yeah.
For that kind of thing.
So this would be workshops on, what homeowners
Yeah.
can do to reduce or
And it can be
property owners.
townwide, it can be
Yeah.
townwide type of, this is what terraces can do. This is what, rain gardens can, that type of dissemination of information that can be used away from the lake.
It was always my fantasy that somewhere down the line, and this is, definitely after our tenure as a task force, we don't know if we'll have another reincarnation or not, but that there would be the ability to do some fundraising, even very local. I know like the Florence Bank has community grants and things, but something that can fund various incentives for homeowners to install, or I say homeowners, property owners to install them, right? Like stormwater management things. I don't know whether it would be rain barrels or some kind of thing where we would be able, if you're willing to do this, here is your incentive. Like in the days, I don't know, I'm old enough to remember when interest rates went crazy and the banks were giving away toasters,
Yeah, right.
When I was a city planner at the time, just a quick little story. So I was a city planner in New York City and giving loans to owners of 2, 3, and 4 family houses in neighborhoods that landlords were starting to defer maintenance on their houses. And this was the beginning of the end of neighborhoods. But they couldn't get loans because the interest rates were at 21%. So one of the big banks said, okay, well, we'll subsidize the interest. But it didn't work unless we got people to apply for the loans, right? So my friend, who was the landscape architect for the planning department, he was planting street trees like crazy all over the place, just planting trees. And I said, if the banks give away toasters, how come we can't give street trees away if a block of homeowners could get, like 30% of the homeowners apply for these loans, we'll give you all street trees. And so that's what we did. And we didn't control who got the loans. We couldn't, because that was the bank, but it was really a good program. Everybody loved it. So I keep thinking that if we get these public education recommendations and can get some funding for incentives for owners to buy in to the contribution they could make, even if it was, plantings, organic, natural, erosion control things. It'd just be great to get everybody all on board. But I always want everyone to be at the same party, Anyway, sorry, that was quite a digression, recorded no less. All right, so we're in agreement. We're going to talk about public education next time. And other than that, the only thing I have here is, well, I said review the timetable. To me, we're right on schedule. I don't see that we're going to have any trouble providing a report to the select board by mid-June. And the only other thing I have here is to choose our next meeting. Might be a hybrid meeting, might not, we'll find out. I have down here for myself, April 17th or April 24th.
I have to go get my calendar.
I think the 17th is not good for me, but I'm just one person.
You know which day the Concom will be?
No,
Okay. And I'm sorry, what were the two options in April?
the
Fourth and the-
24th or the 17th.
Okay.
Either
Well-
work for me.
I will have to get back to you. Either day would work for me right now, but I do want to avoid a conflict with the Concom.
Yeah, right. Is there anyone else who has a potential conflict other than Bob?
Either date is good.
The 17th is not good for
Oh, yeah,
me.
not good for Eric. Okay. I was aimed to get everybody there. Okay, so Bob, do you think that would be a long time to hear back?
You know what? I'm texting Beth right now. I might even be able to get it for you immediately.
Okay. Well, before we sign off, then what I'll ask is, how many people think, this is for Charlene's benefit, how many people think they could or would like to attend the meeting with the Lake Wyola folks on the 1st?
I'd be glad to, be happy to.
Okay. Me, I will.
I'm available.
Yeah, I don't know if I can or not, but that could be a select board meeting night. I don't know. We'll find out.
Right, okay.
But nothing,
So
I
Charlene,
can do it as of now.
So why don't you just send it to everybody in our task force, and then
Okay.
those, unless you think that you need to let people know the names of those who are coming.
Okay.
All
And
right.
can I ask a favor? Because Jen and I, my emails are not always getting to Jen. And so when you get something from me regarding this April 1st meeting, will you just respond that you received it? And if I don't hear from you, then I'll know it didn't go through, and I'll try to see what's wrong. But she didn't get something that I sent 2 days ago, and I'm not sure why. But I get everything from Jen, so not quite sure what's going on.
Okay.
Will do.
Okay, and Charlene, I will send you the this document we just looked
Good.
at.
Good. I'll
And the,
send that out tonight too. I'll put a little information with it as to what the yellow means and all that. So,
yeah, I did put that at the top, but it can be, you do that too.
okay.
And then you wanted an agenda, which is basically an update. I'll put it down. It's basically an update of where we are.
Mhm.
Something about this rural development fund and the 10% match possibilities. And also this maintenance thing.
Yep.
Okay,
That was
Bob,
there.
Bob's hand is up.
Yes, Beth responded rapidly,
Oh, good.
and our conservation meetings are on the 10th and the 24th.
Oh, okay. Well, Eric, we'll miss you, but I think we better stick with. the
Yeah, no, go
17th.
do whatever. Yep,
Yeah,
I get it.
thank you I know you especially are, super backed up with meetings. I think probably Bob
Yeah,
is
well,
too.
we
and
have
I know
enough.
Jim is commuting back and forth all the time to different places, so we're all pretty busy, but
Yeah.
I hope you're encouraged. I think we've really been doing some good work, and I see that it's a different kind of situation than a bunch of studies that just sit on a shelf. We are trying to make this turn into something that's happening.
No, it's good.
Actually
I
built.
agree. It's great. If we can pull it off.
Yeah, we're getting there. Okay, so we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn. Was it the 17th for the meeting?
Yes, 17.
Okay, thanks.
And
Second,
second. So I vote aye. Wallace, aye.
Douglas,
see
aye.
Dr. I.
Zelinski,
Moore, aye.
Hey.
I think that's everybody.
for all the mumbling.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, take care, everyone. Thanks again for your time.
Thanks for.
Thank you, Jen.
Okay.
Yep.
Nice
Bye-bye.
job.
Oh, hey, Jen,
Oh, yeah.
I have a completely